Do you think there might be ways we might kindle awareness of the mental health conditions that drive settler colonialism and genocide? People with unhealed trauma, which they're not conscious of, can sometimes do terrible things to others and to themselves based on lies they believe as a result of their unfaced trauma. So most of the settlers in the West Bank, from my experience, come from countries like the United States. There may be historical trauma in terms of the Holocaust, but I think that many writers on Israel, including Elon Poppy and others, would cite the indoctrination of the Israeli state, and in particular the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, which starts basically in primary school. And it's that indoctrination which leads to this embrace of an apartheid system and dehumanization of the Palestinians. Not that historical trauma, doesn't play a part, but indoctrination is key towards essentially building a society where the military is idolized, mythologized, and the Palestinians are reduced to kind of subhumans. Max Blumenthal's book, Goliath, I think, does a pretty good job of peeling back the layers of modern Israel and exploring all of those issues. Chris, how do you think a group such as Jews that endured genocide in World War II came to commit a genocide of their own only 80 years later? Well, covering war, I saw repeatedly how yesterday's victims instantly become today's victimizers. So the example is the war in Kosovo. I spent all of my time reporting on the atrocities that were being committed by the Serbs against the Kosovo Albanians. And the day the Serbs withdrew, I spent all of my time reporting on the atrocities committed by Kosovo Albanians against ethnic Serbs. This is Primo Levi writes about this very well, that very thin line between the torturer and the tortured. And oftentimes people who have experienced, I think the earlier question raised a good point, trauma, or there's a kind of deep lust for vengeance and for carrying out the atrocities that were committed on you against those who perpetrated or carried out those atrocities. I mean, this has, I think, been part of the Palestine-Israel conflict. And I think it was, if there was a kind of sub theme that all of us who reported out of Gaza kept hitting, and year after year, was that you can't brutalize people like this. You can't gun them down as if they're animals and deny them their dignity and their independence, and not expect blowback, not expect what we saw on October 7th. And so, yes, empowered. I mean, look at the Russian troops, the Soviet troops, once they entered Germany, given the scorched earth policy and massacres that the Nazis had committed on Russian soil. How could you not expect the Soviets to respond in a very similar manner against a German population, even a civilian population? So it's a very natural human phenomena, and unfortunately, those who see in their own suffering the suffering of others often have to rise above their own national or ethnic identity in order to do it, because, of course, those who carried out that perpetrated the genocide, the Germans. I lived in Israel. I knew Israelis who survived the Holocaust who wouldn't even fly over Germany. And Norman Finkelstein speaks about this, and his mother, who was in a death camp, both his parents were, going to the trials. I believe it was in Hamburg, and seeing some of the torturers. And that's just a kind of sad fact of human nature.